My name is Ian Lindsay, and I have the great privilege of getting to help host this amazing evening. And I would like to officially welcome you to the 2024 Hope for the Homeless Partner Together to Give Hope event and vote and fundraiser. And that's when you all applaud a whole lot, right there. Yes. Okay. I get to vote, and I say that that was about a 92% applause. So in the opportunity to give you the 100% chance, I'll just say the same thing one more time. So it is my great privilege to welcome you to the Hope for the Homeless Partner Together to Give Hope Gala fundraiser. Welcome. That was extremely well done. We could not be here if it were not for very, very many people and organizations who have come together to do the work to gather us and also to support us. And we really want to start off by acknowledging some very, very generous supporters, including Flo Merlo of the Harry A. Merlo Foundation, who is here. Flo, are you somewhere nearby? Can you? Okay, well, maybe. Will you applaud for Flo? There. Okay, great. And we want to thank Dean and Kathy Lemon, and we want to thank Multifamily Northwest. Would you give those amazing sponsors a big round of applause? Also, you may have heard that this week there were some elections and there were some things that happened. And if anybody deserves a break, it is anybody who is an elected official this week. And yet, we are so proud that a number of those people have decided to come and spend the evening with us. So would you please let President of the Association of Oregon Counties and Marion County Commissioner Danielle Bethel know that we really appreciate her for coming. And Clackamas County Commissioner Ben West, give them a big yes. And also Multnomah County Commissioner Sharon Myron, thank you. Also, Salem Mayor-elect Julie Hoy. Yes, would you give? And also, and I'll be honest, I had to look this one up. As far as I know, an hour ago, nobody knows the exact way to say this. So, I can definitely tell you that the former mayor of Kaiser and mayoral candidate and potential future mayor, maybe, but I don't think we know the answer finally yet. Would you please give Laura Christopher a round of applause, maybe? Thanks, Laura, for coming. And also, Kaiser City Councilor Sarita Cross. Thank you, Sarita, for coming. We're really acknowledging. Are there any elected officials whose names I did not have who are here, and I would like to acknowledge you? Would you just give all the electeds in the room a big round of applause? We are so grateful. One other group of people without whom we could not gather because nothing would happen are the very dedicated members of the Board of Hope for the Homeless. So, board members, would you stand up and could you give the board members a huge round of applause for all of their work? To the board, thank you, thank you, thank you. We're so grateful, really. So many of you have already figured out all the things about tonight. But if you are the person who's going, now wait, could you tell me some of the things tonight? This is that moment right now. You may have found a drink ticket when you arrived. And if you have not yet found the drink tickets, well, talk to your spouse. They're not sharing as they should. There are drink tickets, and you can use them to obtain beverages just in the lobby. And we encourage you, when you might need another beverage at some point in the coming minutes as things are going along, they're over there. And you please go and obtain the beverages that you're interested in. Also, many of you already visited the delicious buffet, so we really want to give our incredible buffet providers and chefs and servers a big round of applause. If you could let them know how much we appreciate them. Thank you. You also have a 3-digit number on a piece of paper. And as Ben just pointed out, this is a very critical piece of paper. And I would ask right now if everyone could find your own bid number, and I am going to ask you to do the thing where you all hold them up in the air at the same time. We have cameras in the room. So, could we have every single bid number in the air at the same time? These are how you can support Hope for the Homeless tonight. And would you give a cheer for 2024 and all of these bid numbers in the air? Again, because, yeah, Great. That was great. Hold on. That was a 52% cheer. So this is a voting opportunity. Would you give a cheer for Hope for the Homeless with every single bid card in the air? That's wonderful. Okay, I want you to notice a very important design feature of your bid card. You will notice that on one side of your bid card there is a 3-digit number. And if at any point you would like to make a contribution or participate in any way, you want to point that 3-digit number in my direction. However, we intentionally left the other side blank because if at any point tonight you would like to donate $10,000 to Hope for the Homeless, just point the blank side in my direction. I will then ask the person behind you what your bid number is, and we will all applaud for you a lot. So that's why we did that. Right now, before I explain the voting piece for anybody who is just arriving for the first time, this is your first time being with Hope for the Homeless. We were selling raffle tickets earlier, and we have a 50-50 raffle this evening. I will tell you that the current prize for the 50-50 raffle is $875, which is pretty great. The tickets remain $10 even now that the prize is so high. We are going to draw the winner in just a few minutes, but right now we want to give you your final opportunity should anyone want an additional 50-50 raffle ticket or 2 or 3, right? All you have to do is hold up your number and then with your fingers tell me how many you would like. So your number, now that's a $10,000 donation, which is lovely. Okay, so wait, can I see the number? Okay, great. Yeah, okay, it is 280. You want 5. She's going to do 5. You got it. 138 wants 2. You're in. 132. Another 50-50 raffle ticket. You got it. 25. Can you? 1. Great. Wants 2. You're in. 237 wants 2. You're in. 204 wants 2. You got it. 278 wants 5. You got it. 130 wants 2. You got it. 277 wants 5 50-50 raffle tickets. Just in case anybody is not keeping up, this is making the prize get bigger, right? We all understand? Okay, great. 149 wants 3. You got it. Okay. And we do have one more elected, so he just arrived. We should thank all of our elected. We just did that. I want you to know, but we're so glad that you're here. Welcome. 104 wants 2. 301 wants 2. 302 wants 2. 109 wants 2. You are in. Is there anybody else that needs? Okay, yes, there are. I thought so. 135 wants 5. You got it. Anybody else need a 50? 222 wants 5. The prize has gone up quite a bit, I'll just tell you. 247 wants 2. You got it for 50-50. And 287 wants 2. You're in. Is there anybody else that needs a 50-50 raffle ticket? Last opportunity? Okay, those are all of our 50-50 raffle tickets. Would you give all of those people a very good luck applause? Because hopefully one of them will win. No, one of them will win for sure. And may you all win, but that's not possible. Speaking of everyone winning, tonight we have the opportunity for 4 amazing organizations to win. This is the only time when your voting will guarantee that everyone wins. It's just that one person, one organization will win a little bit more. So that's how that works. We are going to be voting this evening, and if you are coming to Hope for the Homeless for the first time, this is a key part of how this event works. We, throughout the rest of the evening, will get to meet 4 amazing nonprofit organizations that are working on solving homelessness in our city. And after we meet all 4 of them, you'll see how very soon, we're going to ask all of you to vote on which of those 4 nonprofits you think is doing the absolute best job. Spoiler alert, all 4 of them will win something, so that's really good. Also, as we go along, we're going to be asking you to vote on a few other questions that will come up during the coming presentation. How do you vote? You might be asking right now. And this is where your mobile device is going to come in very handy. You received a text message when you registered just a few minutes ago asking you to go to Octria, and I would love to invite all of you to go right now. Click on that text message and find your way to the Octria website. In the upper right-hand corner, you are going to see what in the business is known as a hamburger menu. It is 3 little lines that are all together that look nothing like a hamburger, and yet we call them the hamburger menu. Are people finding? Yes. And then you will see that it takes you to a place where you will find various survey questions, and at the very bottom, the all-important vote. That will be the final vote determining the ranking of our 4 nonprofits. But so to demonstrate how this will work, I want to ask you to click on survey question number 1. And it is a very important question. It relates to a very important topic if you ask my 5 or 7-year-old. Perhaps the most important topic, which is, what is your favorite Halloween candy? And if your favorite is not one of these 4, that's too bad. Okay, so of these 4, which is your favorite Halloween candy? We would like you to complete the survey right now. So, is it a Snickers? Is it Twix? Is it a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup? Or is it a Tootsie Roll Pop? There is, of course, a correct answer to this question, which I'm not sharing with you. Okay, so are people able to find? Is anyone struggling, wishing they knew how to answer the question on their mobile device? Okay, somebody at your table will help you out. Ask somebody at your table to show you where to fill out, and then you're going to click on one of the 4 answers. Okay, has everyone submitted the correct response to the question? What is your favorite Halloween candy? Yes? Anybody need further assistance? All right, and for the results, this is the right answer. No answer. The answer is all of them. No, that's not true. Here we go. And the correct response is peanut butter cups. 58% of us got it correct. 5% of us also got it correct. 17% got it correct, and 20, you all got it right. Well done. Would you give yourselves a round of applause for correctly voting on the Halloween candy? Now, as we go through the program, we will be asking you at various moments to return to that same place and vote on further questions. But for right now, you can put your mobile device down. Those other questions are not yet relevant because you have not yet heard the information that will enable you to correctly answer the questions. This evening, we have a really amazing group of people who are going to share with you in more depth how Hope for the Homeless works. And then, of course, we'll get to meet each of our 4 different groups. So I now have the very great pleasure of welcoming our first esteemed speaker to the stage. He is many things, including an avid golfer, which does not necessarily mean a good golfer. He's an avid golfer. He is on the board. He is a lover of coffee. With his wife, Carol, he is the co-director of the Jesus Table, which is a benevolent meal site that provides meals and conversation every Tuesday night. He is the author of Mastering the Art of Commercial Real Estate Investing, and he is one of the co-founders of Hope for the Homeless. Would you please give a huge welcome to Doug Marshall. Doug, welcome.
Well, thank you, Ian, for that interesting introduction. And thank you all for being here tonight. We're truly honored that each and every one of you is joining us. And with so many places you could be, we don't take it lightly that you've chosen to support the Hope for the Homeless Foundation annual fundraiser, Partner Together to Give Hope campaign. Your presence means a lot to us. So let me begin by telling you just a little bit about who I am. I am a native Oregonian. I was born and raised in the Portland area, and I graduated from Sunset High School, seems like about 100 years ago. And then later, I graduated from the University of Oregon. And after 42 years of financing commercial real estate, I retired in 2021. So that's my life story in a nutshell. But more relevant to this presentation today is my experience with the homeless. I have 30 years of experience helping the homeless. And for 16 years, my wife Carol and I volunteered for an organization called Blanket Coverage. We help feed the homeless on Monday nights. And then in 2011, Carol and I started our own benevolent meal site, the Jesus Table. And we provide a weekly meal and a conversation at our church for anyone who walks through our doors. For 5 years, Carol and I were on the board of Fairhaven Recovery Homes, which provides transitional housing for addicts wanting to turn their lives around. And then in 2019, Carol and I started Hope for the Homeless Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that has a 9-member board and no paid staff. So what do? Well, we vet nonprofits that help the homeless to determine which organizations deserve to be financially supported, and we'll talk more about this later. So that's my story, and why am I telling you this? Well, there are 2 reasons. The first reason is I want you to know that HHF is not my first rodeo. As I said before, I have 30 years of experience helping the homeless. And secondly, the reason why I'm telling you this is that some of you will not agree with what I'm about to share about the homeless crisis in Portland. And I get that. And because we have different views on the homeless crisis, some of you may think of me as being heartless towards the homeless. And hopefully, after hearing about my background, you'll realize that's simply not true. And all I ask is that you just hear us out, as we've been actively involved in the homeless crisis for many years. And if you'd like to start a dialogue over a cup of coffee so you can tell me your thoughts about the homeless crisis, I'd be eager to listen to what you have to say. And there in your envelope is a response card. And if you would like to meet, just check the appropriate box. So why are we here tonight? Well, simply put, we're here to share a better approach to addressing Portland's homeless crisis. And by the time you leave, we hope that you feel inspired and confident that this is a challenge we can overcome together. So let's begin. $531 million. Last year, the Tri-County area, Multnomah, Washington County, and Clackamas counties, spent $531 million helping the homeless, which represents a 70% increase over the previous year. That represents $71,000 per homeless person living in the Portland area. So the first question we should be asking ourselves is this. We spent all this money on the homeless. How are we doing compared to other states on some key indicators? Well, before I show you this slide, you need to understand these metrics don't come from an organization that is unsympathetic towards the homeless. No, these statistics come from the federal government and 2 reputable organizations on substance abuse and mental health. Here's Oregon's report card on 5 very important metrics. Oregon has the 3rd largest homeless population per 10,000 residents. Oregon has the highest number of unsheltered families with children. We are 4th highest in unaccompanied youth experiencing homelessness. And the state of Oregon is ranked 3rd lowest in mental health. In other words, almost every other state and the District of Columbia are doing better than us when it comes to mental health. And we ranked 2nd from the last in substance abuse treatment. So based on these 5 metrics, and now this is not a rhetorical question, which I'm going to give you here, so I'd like to hear some answers. So based on these 5 metrics, what letter grade would you give the state of Oregon on its homeless report card? Yeah, an F, a big fat F. And as an Oregonian, these metrics are an embarrassment. They really are. We can do better, and we must do better. So this begs the question, with all the money that has been spent on the homeless, why do we have such abysmal results? And I believe there are 3 reasons why. There's an overemphasis on building expensive, affordable housing, which, by the way, is not affordable and does not alleviate homelessness. Now, you might be asking, well, how expensive is it? Well, Mayor Wheeler's 2022 plan proposed to spend $8.9 billion building 20,000 affordable housing units. And if you do the math, that represents $490,000 per housing unit. Now, I thought, that can't be right. So I asked 4 affordable housing advocates, those who are believers in affordable housing. I asked whether they thought Mayor Wheeler's plan was within the ballpark of other affordable housing developments. And the answer that I got was this: yeah, that's about right. So in comparison, the average price of a home in the Portland area is $450,000. So you could see these units are very expensive. Actually, apartments in the Portland area are selling for less than $200,000 per unit. So that should give you a good idea just how expensive affordable housing is. But the greatest issue that I have with affordable housing is not how costly it is, and it's extremely costly. No, the greatest issue is that affordable housing is rarely used to house the homeless. So how can our elected officials say with a straight face that affordable housing units are being built to benefit the homeless? Well, good question, and this is how they do it. They water down the definition of homelessness to include housing insecure. Now, people who are housing insecure are defined as people who are one paycheck away from losing their housing. Well, by this definition, 40% of the American population is housing insecure. So their definition of homelessness is so broad that it's virtually meaningless. And that's how they say that affordable housing is being built to house the homeless. But in reality, it is housing the housing insecure, those who are poor, those who are on government assistance, who benefit from affordable housing, not the homeless. And you know, it's okay if they want to assist the poor with subsidized housing. We should be compassionate towards the poor, no question. Just don't say it's being built to help the homeless, because it isn't. And that's one reason why we've not seen a decline in homelessness in Portland. Okay, so the second reason why we've not seen a decline in homelessness is that we have an overabundance of compassionate care organizations. Now let me explain. So nonprofits can be divided into 1 of 2 broad categories. Compassionate care organizations, they provide for the immediate needs of the homeless, like food, clothing, medical treatment, temporary shelter, you name it. But they do nothing to address the underlying causes of homelessness. And if you don't tackle the underlying causes of homelessness, you're not solving the problem. Then there's holistic recovery organizations, and they address the underlying causes of homelessness, and then they equip them with the tools and skills needed to return them to stability. Holistic recovery is a solution to the homeless crisis. Compassionate care is not. So unfortunately, we estimate that 90% of the 325 organizations, you heard me right, there are 325 organizations in the Portland area that help the homeless, and of those, 90% of them are under the category of compassionate care, and only 10% are under the category of holistic recovery. You know, Portlanders are a very compassionate people, so much so that we believe we're actually enabling the homeless crisis to fester. Instead of helping the homeless make tough choices to get off the street, we're providing them with so much compassionate care that we are enabling them to continue living on the street. And I believe this needs to change. The third reason we haven't seen a decline in the homeless crisis is that there's a total lack of accountability on how money is being spent. It's a simple fact of life, and it's not just true here, but it's just, life in general. You can't improve what you don't measure. And government officials lack the most basic of data to monitor how effective their money is being spent. They don't know who is doing a good job of helping the homeless return to stability and who is not. Now, here's what Multnomah County Commissioner Sharon Myron said in an op-ed piece in the Oregonian earlier this year. Doug Marshall is spot on. This is exactly the work the county would be doing if we actually cared about being effective, had a plan, and were interested in measuring results to show progress. Thank you, Commissioner Myron. Really, for those kind words. You made my day. You really did when I saw that in the Oregonian. In summary, the old approach has failed us miserably. We need a better approach for solving the homeless crisis. HHF has a 9-step plan, and when the plan was originally written, the typical comment that I received was something like this: well, that's not going to happen. And surprisingly, the naysayers have been proven wrong. Public sentiment has forced changes in policies regarding the homeless crisis. We're not there yet. Much still needs to be done, but we've made significant progress over the last couple of years, and we have elected officials who are supportive of our cause, like the ones who are here with us tonight. Thank you. And if you would like a copy of this 9-step plan, just check the appropriate box on your response card and we'll send it to you. Now, we can't go through the 9-step plan tonight. It would take way too long. But I'd like to focus on what we in this room can do to solve the homeless crisis. So here it goes. The solution, first of all, let's redirect affordable housing funding to holistic recovery organizations. That's probably a difficult task for us to do tonight. But at the very least, our elected officials want to continue building affordable housing, then let's just admit that it's being built for the housing insecure. Just admit it. Secondly, let's funnel more funding to holistic recovery organizations and less to compassionate care organizations. We in this room can do that. With over 300 compassionate care organizations in the Portland area, they are inadvertently enabling the homeless crisis to fester. The most compassionate, if you want to be compassionate towards the homeless, absolutely the most compassionate thing we can do for the homeless is to tackle the root causes of their homelessness, not make their life a little less miserable living on the street. And number 3, require that holistic recovery organizations to document their success in helping the homeless become stabilized and housed. Those who have a proven track record of helping the homeless should be financially supported. A while back, I read a book titled The Shrewd Samaritan, and it's considered by many as the quintessential book on how to alleviate worldwide poverty. In this book, the author, Bruce Wittick, says this: "My word to donors is to withhold donations to any nonprofit unable to offer credible third-party evidence that is helping the people it claims to help." Now, let me read that back one more time. He's saying to withhold donations to any nonprofit that is unable to offer credible third-party evidence that it's helping the people it claims to help. And that's exactly what we do at HHF. We are that third-party organization that objectively measures how well they are doing helping the homeless. Now, if you would like a copy of this book, someone brought me 5 copies tonight to hand out. And so afterwards, if you'd like a copy of the book, the first 5 people who come up to me, I'll be happy to give you the book. So just see me afterwards. It's an excellent book. So tonight, we're going to tell you how we vet these organizations, okay? And then we're going to introduce you to 4 awesome holistic recovery organizations that have documented their efforts to stabilize and house the homeless. These 4 organizations deserve our financial support. They are the Men's Residential Center for Volunteers of America, Pathway of Hope, Salvation Army, Shepherd's Door, Portland Rescue Mission, and finally the Miracles Club. So now listen to this. Combined, these 4 organizations last year were successful in stabilizing and housing 365 homeless individuals. Yeah, it can be done. That means there are 365 fewer people living on our streets today because of the efforts of these 4 organizations. And if you're interested in reviewing their metrics, in your envelope is a copy of the vetting summary of these 4 organizations. I leave you with this powerful quote that's often attributed to St. Francis of Assisi. Start by doing what is necessary, then do what is possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. Now let me break that down. First, we do what is necessary. We see the problem and we commit to being a part of the solution. Next, we do what is possible. We support organizations making a tangible difference. And then, almost without realizing it, we're doing what once seemed impossible. We're helping to solve Portland's homeless crisis. And with your help, we can do the impossible. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Can we hear it for Doug Marshall one more time? Doug, thank you. So, Doug just mentioned that here at HHF, we are very focused on the numbers. And I get to introduce 3 people who are the current vetting team that have done the hard work to ensure that those 4 organizations do, in fact, measure up. So I'm going to introduce them individually, and then the 3 of them are going to tell you just a little bit about the process that they have undertaken in vetting these 4 organizations. So the first, I should also mention that all 3 of these people graciously serve on the board of Hope for the Homeless, which is really, yeah, exactly. The first person I get to introduce very briefly played professional baseball with Ken Griffey Sr. You can ask him about that later. He has been a self-employed consulting statistician for the past 33 years, where he very much enjoys downhill skiing, sometimes too fast, and he can tell you exactly how too fast he sometimes goes, because he has a PhD in biostatistics. Would you please welcome Don Lewis to the stage? And Don, I'm going to introduce, can I introduce all 3 and then I'll ask? Okay, so great. So the second person has previously served on the Westland-Wilsonville School Board for over a decade. He has 10 years leading Water Africa, partnering with World Vision to bring water to over 50,000 people living in Zambia. One of his favorite things to do is keep up with 4 children and 9 grandkids in 4 states, which does require advanced degrees in mathematics. He has 45 years in high tech, the last 17 at Intel. Would you please welcome engineering, physics, and NBA, Mr. Gary Middlestad, to the stage. And the third member of our vetting team, somebody else played baseball with Ken Griffey Sr., that's right. The third person has 15 years as a product manager in marketing and healthcare technology. He is a founding member of the Jesus Table, which you heard Doug mention earlier, serving weekly meals for the homeless community in Cedar Mills. He is an outdoor enthusiast, enjoying hiking, backpacking, cycling, kayaking, and he has a computer science and software engineer career. Would you please welcome Darren Connor to the stage? Thank you, Darren. And so I get to ask each of you a question about how you have undertaken this big task. So I'm going to start with you, Don, if that's okay. And the question is, can you just tell us briefly how this vetting process works?
Absolutely. I hope you all like flowcharts. I'm a geeky guy, as he said, but I only have 2 minutes to present this. So here's our 6-step process for vetting potential grantees. And the first step is we identify from that list that Doug mentioned of well over 325 nonprofits in the Portland area, those that might be able to meet our criteria for a grant. How do we decide on that? Gary's going to talk about that in a minute. But the second step is just go to their website. You can see from their website right away if they're not going to qualify. If they might qualify, then we put them on a list. We're looking for 4 to 8 during the granting season. We then invite them to submit an application. So the 4 to 8, I think this year did we do 8? I can't remember. Anyway, we contact the executive director and ask him or her to provide an application. And by the way, we think that's a distinctive of HHF. We actually pursue our grantees. We don't wait for them to come to us. Some do come to us, but I think most of our grantees over the years have been pursued by us. Then the next step is the important step, which is evaluate their application. So what we're looking for in that application is some pretty important data. We're looking for impact data. We want to see how are they doing getting folks off the street. Are they staying off the street? Again, Gary's going to talk about that. I shouldn't steal your thunder, should I? No. Okay. So that takes a while. That can take weeks. There's a back and forth typically with the person we're in touch with, clarifying our questions. We're clarifying their answers. And finally, when we're done with that and we're happy with what we see, we do an on-site evaluation. And then we bring other members of the board in and visit the site, meet the staff, hear about their programs. We sometimes even meet the clients. It's great. And if we're happy with that, then generally it's over. We have a board meeting, though, and discuss what we found in the application and the evaluation. And it's usually a no-brainer to award them a grant. So, and let me just say, I am super honored to be involved in this operation. It's fantastic work. I love it. And you don't need a PhD in statistics. Okay. Gary.
Perfect. So as, you can give Don a big round of applause. That's fine. Okay, so as Don mentioned, Gary, would you be willing to tell us a little bit more about the application process and specifically that very important on-site evaluation?
Happy to do that. Thanks, Ian. Yes, we have 5 questions, core questions that we have on our application. Don mentioned that in the flow chart. The first has to do with the homeless, whether we're focused on the chronic homeless, those that have been on the street for a long period of time, as opposed to the housing insecure that Doug has mentioned to you. So that's the first question. The next 3 questions are specific to the effectiveness of the organization in getting folks long-term off the street. The first is the number of people they attempted to help in the year that we're focused on, and how many actually completed and graduated from the program in that year. That's kind of the core effectiveness. And then how many are still effective, still off the street after a year. So we asked them from the previous year, what was the success ratio, continued success ratio of those that were successful in the previous iteration. Then the last question has to do with more of the financial accountability. What is the average cost of one person stabilized and housed? After we've addressed these in the application, then we move to the on-site. And here we want to basically validate what's been discussed in the application. But more than that, we want to just go experience how they do this for ourselves. We want to be in their organization. And there are 3 basic areas that we focus on. The first is the facilities. Are the facilities adequate and going to be helpful for those that are in their process. The second area is the programs. And the key is, do they have individualized case management and assessments to really understand what the root cause is that is causing the homelessness? This is very important. Unless you really can, and each client has their own specific story, okay? And then do they adapt their program to help that individual be successful through the program? And the last category is really important, and I call it heart. As we interact with the administrators and the employees and even the clients, do we get a sense that they have this really crucial love for the homeless that not only sustains them in their work, but also comes through to the homeless, and basically, as they communicate with the homeless, do they trigger that thing that's so necessary for the homeless to be successful, and that is hope. This idea, this sense that they can be successful through the program. So after we've completed this, then our team deliberates on what we've heard and then makes a funding decision, a recommendation to the board for consideration.
Thank you, Gary. Really appreciate it. All right, so Darren, people may be wondering, this all sounds really wonderful. It actually sounds like quite an involved process. So after you have spent all of that time and effort to do these evaluations, do you then just give organizations money one time? Is there an ongoing award, or how does that work?
Lower mic for us shorter people. So tonight, what you're going to hear about is our Champions Fund, and that is designed as an initial award for organizations that we've identified and vetted, as Gary and Don just discussed. So we have awarded grants to those organizations to the tune of 20 to date, and since 2019, as discussed. One of the things we've recognized as we've matured as an organization is that we don't want to just provide a one-time grant. That to be really successful in tackling homelessness will be more effective if we can provide ongoing funding. So 2 years ago, we implemented and introduced the Evergreen Fund. And the idea here was, hey, if we can find organizations that we've funded once and we see that they're growing in their effectiveness and their ability to grow their impact, then those are ones that we want to fund. This does two things if we can provide annual funding. First of all, it helps us better partner with these organizations and help grow their effectiveness. And second, it helps the organizations be able to plan more effectively because they know they've got an ongoing source of funding versus just a one-time sort of thing. So this year we funded 3 of our past Champions Fund awardees, and to date we've raised over $800,000 towards helping the homeless. So very excited about that, and very excited to have you here and share that with you. So thanks.
Could we just give our vetting team one more big round of applause for all their work? And so now we are going to enter the part of our evening where we invite you to meet these 4 organizations that we're talking about. And we're going to do each of these in a little bit of a 2-part process because we want you to really watch and listen, because after we've met all 4 of them, we're going to ask everyone in this room to vote on which of these 4 organizations should receive 40% of our total funding this evening, and the other 3 organizations will each receive 20% of our total funding this evening. So all 4 of these organizations we have vetted. We know that they're great, but we are leaving it up to all of you to make the final determination. So you've got to, really watch and see which one are you going to vote for when it comes time. And also along the way, we will be asking you to do a few survey questions. So it is my great pleasure, and I'm going to ask you to, if you can't easily, comfortably see the screen, by all means, adjust your chair so that you can see. This is about a 2-minute video. The first of our 4 organizations from Volunteers of America is the Men's Residential Center. Check this out.
Jerome said, everyone else in the world gave up on me. You all never did. And for me, it's so important not to give up on folks. At the age of 18, he came out to Portland, Oregon, where his uncle and aunt lived. Sadly, quickly his uncle introduced him to methamphetamines, shot him up at the age of 19, his first time shooting methamphetamines. Jerome then went on a 20-year run as a major player in the drug crime world here in Oregon. Spent about 10 of those years incarcerated. Went through numerous treatment programs, always a treatment failure. So important not to give up on folks because, when folks are broken, they can easily get, just to that place of, it's why they use drugs, because they're broken. And it's when you see that, recovery happen, that's when they become, who they should be, the healing, the spiritual growth. It's an amazing gift to be able to see life transformed in recovery. From, living on the streets to being in and out of prison, jail, doing some pretty, not very nice things. Came into our program for the first time in 2003. Sadly, he walked out the front door the first time in handcuffs. And so Jerome is back now out on the streets doing his criminal behavior, his drug use, drug dealing. He was over by the Mac stop by Lloyd Center, and the 7th grade girl walked up to him. And Jerome, actually, his first day with us, we have a speakers bureau where we speak at many middle schools, high schools throughout the Portland metropolitan area. And the 7th grade girl walked up to him and said, at the Mac stop, said, "I'm never going to use drugs or alcohol because of what you said to me." And for Jerome, it was this powerful, cathartic moment. If I had that kind of an impact on a kid, I want to change my life. Called us back up, called his probation officer back up, said, "Can I come back into treatment?" We both said, absolutely yes. Has now been clean and sober ever since. Got off parole in 2005, started volunteering for us, and then we hired him quickly thereafter. Out of all the clients I've ever had, he is the most committed to being a parent and just loves his kids. He has 6 children, 6 grandkids, and just a phenomenal parent and role model. And 3 years ago, graduated with his master's in social work from Portland State. Toughest part about changing in recovery is giving up the old relationships. Grant would be so meaningful to us is we would really try and use it to enhance the recovery of our clients is by building this strong partnership with their support members and our alumni and try and enhance that relationship building with some specific, like, hey, let's buy Trailblazer tickets. You can take your support member out. Because our clients, most of them are pretty low income and pretty much, always are kind of taking from the support person. So we see this as a wonderful opportunity that now, hey, I don't have to always take, I can give back and feel, give them a better sense of self and self-esteem. Why I chose to work with this population is a large part of how I grew up. I grew up with an alcoholic father who was a very violent man. He left when I was 8, never saw him again. As a child of an alcoholic, I know what trauma it does to a kid. The men who come in have been pretty broken by life. For folks who grew up with this horrific childhood, early trauma, sexual abuse, mental, physical, emotional abuse, but we have to believe hope is possible. It's an amazing gift to work with this population. I think partially out of my spiritual beliefs, I think as you've done unto the least of these, you've done unto me. And so for me, it's extremely important to work with the folks that society really kind of doesn't want to work with. To do this work, to see men transform their lives in recovery by choosing to be abstinent and then becoming the parent, human being they get, they should be and get to be.
So now I want to call your attention back to that survey link. And we're going to go to our second survey. You're going to do it in exactly the same way. You're going to find Octria in your phone. If you want, you can go all the way back to your text messages if that's easier, but it might still be open. And now you're going to go to survey number 2. And this time the question is a little bit more important than your favorite Halloween candy. This question is, what is the primary focus of Hope for the Homeless Foundation? And hopefully you're all finding this in your phone. Is it A, building more affordable housing? B, providing for the immediate needs of the homeless, like food and clothing? C, vetting nonprofits that help the homeless to determine which organization to financially support, or D, offering temporary shelter to the homeless. One of these is slightly more correct than the others. Some of them are okay. So we want you to demonstrate or your thought on which it is, and hopefully people are, we're hoping that at this point this is just second nature and very easy. Yes? Everybody knows how to do this now? Okay, great. Do we have most of our responses? Have you been able to submit your response? A, B, C, D? I see general acquisition to that comment. Okay, great. So the responses are 58 Reese's peanut butter cups. No. Okay, 99% say to vet nonprofits that help the homeless. Perfect. And I think the other one was me earlier today testing out that question. Okay, so perfect. So 104 people. So there you go. That's what we are doing, and you guys are doing a really great job. This is right. We are vetting nonprofits that help the homeless. And yes, those other things are great, but that is not what we are about. Okay, I now get to introduce our second organization. The second organization this evening from the Salvation Army is Pathway of Hope. So I invite you to please check this out.
James was not housed. Life was kind of falling apart. He was losing his kids. He was losing himself. Didn't know where to turn. James has two sons, James Jr. and Leo, and connected with our outreach program and was working on getting housed and was invited into our Pathway of Hope program. Your life is falling apart. You have these two kiddos who are looking at you for help. Are you ready for a life change? And James was all in, began to identify, hey, these are the barriers that I keep coming up against over and over. These are the barriers that are keeping me from getting housed, from getting long-term employment, from having a life plan and see it through. And over time, he began to address these barriers. He got sustainable housing for he and his two sons. One of the goals of our program is to break cycles of generational poverty and to break that cycle where people are not just looking externally for the means of their lives, but they begin to find agency within themselves. We don't want to be the end destination for anyone. We want to be scaffolding as they're building a life by coming alongside a parent or parents, coaching and mentoring them towards success in their life, which by default is going to carry over into success for the next generation. They're learning how to better their lives, work on their lives for the sake of the children that they're raising. He actually started his own business and is doing very well in his own business, a roadside assistance business in 3 counties, and the business is more than he can handle. I can do this for myself. I can do this for my kids. And you can almost just see it in their countenance. Suddenly there's this excitement for the work, there's this belief in the work, and you can see it the way that their kids begin to relate to them. His sons are thriving, they're in steady education with steady home life, and we're so excited. James is actually graduating in 2024 from our program. And the thing that I'm probably most excited about with James' story is that now he is re-engaging the Pathway of Hope program as a volunteer. He said, I want to come back, I want to give, I want to mentor, I want to take the lessons that I've learned and pass those on to other people. We really struggle with the idea of young people in our city sleeping in tents, sleeping in cars, sleeping in congregate shelters. We want to see them housed. What becomes pivotal in this kind of program, which leverages a lot of mentoring, is the right team, the right staff. We like our case manager to family ratio to be somewhere around 10-to-1 so that they can spend a lot of time invested in the lives of these families. So with awarded grants from this organization, Hope for the Homeless, is staff funding with a long-term goal of seeing this actually expand, which would require us to bring on more case managers. For many of them, for the first time, maybe ever, but maybe just in a long time, they begin to prove to themselves, oh, I can have an impact on my own outcome. It might just be a small influence growing in their lives, like the little bit of light that comes from a sunrise, but you just see it on them. Month 2, month 3, they begin to see, I think I can have hope for the future. I think that there's a life for me.
We're going to ask you to go back to our next survey and answer one more question as you consider a pathway of hope. So the next survey question, survey number 3, do I have that right? Yes? Is, what is the reason given for the failure to reduce homelessness in Portland? Is it A, an overemphasis on building very expensive affordable housing? Is it B, an overabundance of compassionate care organizations? Is it C, a lack of accountability on how money is spent? Or is it D, all of the above? And we're going to ask you to make your selections. And now this process takes moments because of the magic of the internet. So I see everybody putting their phones. Yes, you're making that final. Okay, and the room says the answer is, yes, all of the above. Exactly, yes, it is. So all of the above, lack of financial accountability, yes, but 97% of you say all of the above. These are the reasons. Overemphasis on expensive affordable housing, abundance of compassionate care, lack of financial accountability. And of course, the great thing is that we have the capability of doing something about it. All right. Next organization. Remember, we've already had the opportunity to meet 2. And now the third of our 4 organizations is Shepherd's Door. So please, from the Portland Rescue Mission, here's Shepherd's Door.
When we met her, the words that she used to describe herself were, I am lost, I am broken, I am hopeless, I am emotionally bankrupt, and I don't know how to put one foot in front of another. Amanda grew up in a home where she was surrounded by addiction. There were drugs and alcohol all around her, and by the time she was 18, she was in her own full-fledged addiction, and because of that addiction, she couldn't graduate high school. By the time she was 20, she was living on the street. So while it was her addiction that drove her to the street, it was really a sense of hopelessness and a feeling of worthlessness that kept her there for over 10 years. She found herself in jail and she discovered that she was pregnant. And at that point, someone offered her a phone call to Shepherd's Door. At Shepherd's Door, we serve women and children that are coming from very toxic environments. They are looking for safety and they don't have the skills or the community that they need to change their lives on their own. They learn how to live in community, how their decisions and words impact the women and then the children around them. There's a lot of accountability, there's a lot of discussion, there's even conflict. There's a learning how to live. There is job training that's on site. There's a lot of life skills, a lot of job skills, a lot of mentorship, spiritual healing. She felt hopeless and worthless. That is almost universal for anybody who walks through our doors. But they leave knowing something about themselves that's really amazing. Amanda called herself faithful. She said, I'm a faithful person. I finished this program and I'm going to be faithful to finish the other things that I have set out before me. She is one test away from earning her drug and alcohol counseling license. And she's very excited to be able to pour back into women who are in a situation that she's familiar with. In her graduation speech, she said to the room, I am a chain breaker. And she said, today, I know that I am worthy and that I am loved and that I've been healed. We see stories like that happening all the time at Shepherd's Door. And in fact, 86% of the women who graduate from Shepherd's Door are still housed and sober today. With the grant money from Hope for the Homeless, we are going to pursue new avenues of finding and recruiting more women and more children to come to Shepherd's Door. There is a lower tolerance for homelessness right now than we've seen in a really long time. So people are afraid and they don't know where to go. We are equipped for such a time as this. This is a really unique opportunity and the funds couldn't come at a better time. We are wanting to get our information out in front of a lot of community partners right now. We want to connect with jails, detox facilities, the Department of Human Services, churches, anyone who might come in contact with a homeless person so that they know that we are a safe place for women and children to come and that we can offer a program that does result in long-term permanent change. It is like seeing somebody rise up from the ashes, going from death to life. It is really that transformational.
Okay, we're going to ask you to complete one final survey. What type of organization should be receiving more funding? Compassionate care organizations, holistic recovery organizations, government agencies, private housing developers. No editorialization needed. If you would like, you can, now, for the elected officials, you're allowed to vote for C, if you want to. No, I'm just teasing. Okay, this is the great thing about this vote. It is an anonymous vote. We don't know who is voting for which. All right, so, and all of you say that it is holistic recovery organizations, 99%. And yes, compassionate care organizations, I mean, you know, we do have to meet people where they are for a second. Correct, holistic recovery organizations, you've got it. So, we now get to introduce our final organization. This is the Miracles Club, and we really hope you enjoy this.
I've lived on the streets. I've hustled on the streets. I know what it's like to be out there. I haven't been out there for 26 years, but something greater than myself has led me here to help somebody do something different. Say that they're homeless. They'll come through our door. I'm hungry. Go in there and get them a cup of soup and a bottle of water, maybe a snack bar. If they need clothes, they'll go down into the basement where we have a clothes closet with brand new clothes. A kind word and the beginning of building relationships. So when you are ready to get clean, you are ready to do something, when you are ready to come indoors, you know that you can go to Miracles, because I met Trey. He came and he gave me this, so I can go to Miracles and visit with Trey. Take care of your recovery, take care of your health, move on to the next step. I don't have to stay stuck anymore. Not just the next 30 days, the 60 and 90 days, for the rest of your life. What is it that you want to do? We serve the African American community, but not limited to that. Anybody that comes through the door can get services. Our culture is a culture of relationship. Relationships built throughout the neighborhood, throughout the community, and it just doesn't exist in Northeast Portland anymore. So that's what Miracles there is, trying to rebuild that community. We have 8 workers that go out through different parts of the city, mainly down at Dawson Park, where there's a lot of homelessness and drug activity and drug selling. They go out, they give out food, they give out Narcan. We have loving, giving people that don't judge, don't discriminate. They give out what's ever needed, and then they're invited to come to Miracles to receive the services that we have. My passion is about paying it forward, because someone paid it forward for me. Somebody gave me that helping hand, that hand up, rather than that hand out. And now I sit here where I can do the same. And so whatever grant that we get, we put it back into the community. We've just purchased 2 homes for transitional housing. So we need funding to keep those houses up and running. We need funding to make sure that our outreach team can continue to go out, to make sure our vehicles are kept up so that they can get out. I've seen them come, I've seen them go, but somebody will come back 10 years later. I remember you. You gave me a kind word. You gave me a cup of coffee. You gave me a glimmer of hope. You planted a seed.
So I get to invite to the stage one more person. And this person is actually involved with one of our past Champion Fund organizations. In fact, he leads that organization. So if you would please welcome to the stage the Executive Director of CityTeam, the one and only Lance Orton.
Hi, oh, look at that. That's good. You used the right logo, Doug. I thank you for that. My name's Lance Orton, as he mentioned, and let me start with a few pretentious titles that I have: Executive Director of CityTeam Portland and former award grant recipient from Hope for the Homeless. I also am the Vice President of the board at the Central East Side Together, which is the Enhanced Services District that oversees the Central East Side livability and safety issues in the neighborhood that CityTeam has operated for 25 years. And then one more pretentious title. I serve on the board for Shelter Portland, which is our new mayor-elect, Keith Wilson's organization that he created while running for mayor that is geared to ending unsheltered homelessness here in Portland. I'm also a person in long-term recovery, and that's what I want to focus on here today, because that is the accolade that I am most proud of. It is the one that I identify most with in my identity. And it is the one thing that has given me the most reward in my life. And I think back to my high school days. I went to a very prestigious Catholic prep school in San Francisco, and I remember all the things that I wanted to be when I grew up. A person I'll just say it, a heroin addict was not one of them. I wanted to be an Silicon Valley executive, just like my dad. I wanted to be a family man. I wanted to make a lot of money, and I wanted a beautiful wife. Those were my aspirations. And through a series of trauma events, one, losing my dad to a tragic accident, that death spun me into about a 10-year cycle of going through rock bottoms that got lower and lower and lower. And by the time I was 42, I was completely addicted to heroin started as a pain pill addiction. And that addiction, if I really had to look at what caused it, between the trauma and the events, it was loneliness. It was really loneliness. I was so isolated towards the end of my addiction that I didn't want to live. And there's a handful of you in the room that know me. I am naturally an optimist and have a real zeal for life. I always have. And the last few days of my addiction, I was living in the back of my Jeep in a Walmart parking lot right here in Troutdale, and I wanted to die. I was considering suicide. And for those of you that don't know the power of addiction, the power of being dependent on a substance for your life, it sucks everything away from your life, and it's the only thing that matters. I needed it to survive, and I didn't want to live anymore. And so 2018, I aged myself, 43 in 2018, I was living in the back of that Jeep, and a miraculous thing happened. I had all the problems in the world that you could imagine that come with addiction. I had a college degree. I also had warrants for my arrest. I had drug dealers that were after me, and I had no one else. My family had put up really tough boundaries, tough love, said, my mom, I remember calling her that last week, begging her for more money, begging her for a motel room. And she said, no, Lance, you're 43 years old, figure this out. Call me when you have a year of sobriety. And I thought, sobriety? What is she talking about? The next thing that happened was nothing short of miraculous. One of those drug dealers that I owed money to showed up at my Jeep, had found me, and stole my Jeep at gunpoint. He made me drive the Jeep down a road somewhere in Portland, and I wasn't from Portland at this time. I had come from Bend, Oregon, mind you. And as he is having me drive, and this person, we'll just call him Crazy Cameron for the purposes of this story. He's not the kind of guy that you really want after you, especially when he has a gun in your hand. And he said, as I was driving, terrified, detoxing, withdrawing from heroin, in the worst state I've ever been, he said something incredibly funny. He said, Lance, don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. God told me, not this one. He has a plan for you, and you need to go to rehab. In the moment, none of this registered as anything more than completely psychotic. I need to get away from this individual as quickly as possible and jump out of the car, roll down the hill, and run. But he didn't hurt me. I don't have time to go in the whole story, but he wound up driving away with my Jeep and left me unharmed. And I remember standing in a strange park somewhere in Portland, and there was a brief moment of serenity where I just realized now I'm really homeless. This is the rock bottom that I'm not willing to go any lower. There was no one left in my life. I had no idea what the next step is. My ID, my phone, everything that showed that I existed, Social Security card, birth certificate, all in the glove box, drove away, and I'm standing in this park with the clothes on my back. And that serenity quickly passed into panic. I had some kind of panic attack. I woke up in the hospital at Kaiser Sunnyside. The doctor said, we don't know, you're okay, but you were found unconscious and you were brought here. And I remember thinking in that hospital bed, what am I going to do? I have nowhere to go and I can't stay here. So I milked the hospital system as long as possible, which is often what many of our homeless do in Portland, because I was terrified to go out to the street. I had never actually lived unsheltered. I had my Jeep, but I'd never lived unsheltered. And so after about 4 days of receiving fentanyl and pain pills in the hospital, which was ironic, the nurse finally said, we have to discharge you. They asked me where I could get a ride to, and I finally told someone for the first time I was homeless. And she looked at me, I'll never forget the look, and she says, okay, now that's a need. And so in came a social worker, I think I have it, that social worker, her name is Monica. I will never forget, she gave me one of these, which is a little voucher to the CityTeam shelter. And so I know you can't see this here, but there's a CityTeam logo on here. I have the actual one she gave me framed in my office, and I didn't want to bring it as fear that I would drop it and break it. But I do have that actual voucher. And so that led me to the CityTeam emergency shelter. She told me, this is going to be rough for you, by the way. And I remember thinking, what does she mean? And I had never been in a homeless shelter before. I quickly found out what she meant. It was rough. I showed up at Grand Avenue. There was a line of about 40 men experiencing homelessness. And I got in line and I went through the normal shelter process. And 3 days of going through the line, coming in, getting a meal, getting a shower, getting a mat to sleep on. And I look back at that experience, and it really was rough. It was humbling. It was the most humbling thing I had ever been through. It was so necessary for my kind of addiction and where I was in my life. I needed that humility to realize I don't know how to be a 43-year-old. I just don't know how to live this life. And so after about 3 days, I started to notice there was us in the population, the men experiencing homelessness, but there was another group of guys running around, kind of running the place. And they didn't look like you all, but they had nicer shoes and they had combed hair and they were kind of running the place. And I figured, all right, well, I should probably figure out who these guys are. And sure enough, one of them came up to me and said, hey, we've got this program here. You can live here for a year for free. We'll help you with your addiction. We'll help you get sober. And it's really cool. And all I heard was live here for free for a year. And I said, where do I sign? I signed up for the residential program. We call it Renew. And that year was an incredible year. I mean, I've experienced a lot of joy in my life. Prior to my dad, had an amazing upbringing. College was a blast for me at San Diego State. But the year I spent in the residential program at CityTeam, I have never had more joy in my life. And I think that's first of all because I started to build community. There were other men in this program that were different than me in many ways, but they all knew what it was like to have that pull of addiction in your life that you just could not escape alone. And so I started to build relationships with these men. I developed a relationship with God. I absolutely fell in love with God. Grew up agnostic, secular family, no church, none of that in my life. I met the living God in that program, and he filled my heart, and he still does every day. And thank you. That's worth a round of applause. And I heard a lot of, in these videos, that spiritual growth that we get. And that's exactly what it is. It's a relationship with God, whatever you call your God. It really, really changed my life. And it got me to look at the person that I was. And so as I graduated that program, when I left there, I had purpose, I had meaning, I had community. I had a job. One of the requirements at CityTeam Renew program is that you cannot graduate until you have a living wage job and $3,000 saved in the bank. And I thought, wow, that's pretty tough. What happens if you don't? Well, we hold you back. And I thought, that's brilliant. And so by the time I got out, I had a whole new life. And I look back at that experience, and it was all the pieces that led up to where I am today were so necessary. And today, to be able to lead the organization that saved my life is beyond an honor. It's not work. It's an absolute pleasure and a joy. Want me to keep going? I don't know how much time I have.
Well, thank you.
I gave him some questions, so if I got stuck like I am now, he's supposed to ask me these questions.
Yeah, Mr. Orton doesn't seem stuck at all. But Lance, if you wouldn't mind just tying that then to how you ended up meeting the Marshalls, and then about that part.
Of course. Okay. So Doug and Carol Marshall popped into my life through a series of. One of the cool things about the videos that we saw here, and that I'm just now realizing, is that these holistic care organizations, as Doug and everyone calls them, we actually all work together. The organizations that are up tonight and that have received grants in the past, and we all collaborate and work together. We share men and women in our programs. We help each other so that, let's say a program for one person doesn't work, we never exit someone to the streets. We always call Shepherd's Door. We work with our new women and kids program, and we share clients so that there's always a pathway or a next step if it doesn't work out within our programs. And I think that's pretty cool that you're vetting all of the organizations that we work with. And so I met Doug at a networking event, and somebody said, hey, you should call Doug because they gave out money. And I was a very new executive director and new fundraiser, and I chased him out the door, and I said, so I was one of those that they did not pursue. I pursued Doug. And he said, well, there's a process, and give me a call, let's go have coffee. And so I went through that process, and so I can tell you, I know what it's like to have the books opened up on your organization and being looked at with a microscope. And I remember he was going, well, we're going to find out what the cost is and your success rate. And I was really nervous. I'm like, oh, God, I think it worked for me. I don't know. So the process, and it turned out, we fit right in the center of the four that are up for tonight. And I really thought that the accountability and the thoroughness that he was looking at, he was so careful to make sure that the money that he was giving out is going to organizations that are actually creating lasting change. And so we received a $40,000 grant about a year or the year before. And for me at that moment, I was new in executive director role. CityTeam was in a massive growth phase. We were opening a women and kids program. We had just taken over Night Strike, which is our outreach event under the Burnside Bridge. And so when we were awarded that money, it was real. It could not have been at a better time. And so thank you, Doug and Carol, and the rest of the Hope for the Homeless Foundation.